Hi, I'm Carlin Borisenko. In early 2020, I was the knitting Democrat who accidentally went viral on the internet for going to a Trump rally and then left the party. I became the conservative darling, was on all the shows, traveled around the country, and then realized that conservatives were no better than Democrats. If there's one thing that I've learned, it's that both political tribes are two sides of the same coin. But it wasn't all bad. On my journey, I became obsessed with understanding the woke ideology and the culture war. I broke the story of the city of Seattle doing segregated training with its employees.
How bad has this stuff become? The city of Seattle has now put out, I'm not kidding you, this is according to Dr. Carolyn Borisenko, who's an organizational psychologist. The city of Seattle asked its white employees to voluntarily spend a day off in a training about their internalized racial superiority.
I broke the story that led to the first ever federal lawsuit against critical race theory in the schools. I broke the Coke Be Less White story, one of the biggest anti-woke stories of all time. It got over 30 million views. Coca-Cola's corporate headquarters even had to change their outgoing voicemail.
Throughout the past few days, you may have seen inaccurate reporting on the content of our recently launched diversity, equity, and inclusion training program.
I exposed the schools in Burlington, Vermont for grooming middle school children live on the internet. They called me an unwoke cult leader for that. And the Vermont Human Rights Commission slandered me publicly as being a hate channel. I even got called a hero in Breitbart for exposing that the Washington Post was writing a hit piece on Christopher Rufo. I have broken story after story after story about what's going on in the public schools, from Cambridge, Massachusetts, to autistic sex education, to the Department of Education in Michigan, literally training teachers all over the state how to groom children. I wrote a book called Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life. I host a podcast all about fighting back, and I'm downloading all of my knowledge to you on my Substack, carlin.substack.com. The world is a crazy place. We are literally surrounded by cults on all sides. On this show, we're going to do a deep dive into all aspects of the culture war, and I will show you the dark, dystopian underbellies on both sides. Here are the commitments I'll make to you. I will always tell you the truth. I will always bring you receipts. And if you stick with me, I promise you will see the world differently. Welcome to the cult. Please mount that like button for me and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Well, hey, everyone. Welcome to The Cult. Happy Thursday. The Cult is a show that I do Monday through Friday on this here YouTube channel and on Odyssey, Rockfin, Rumble, Getter, Twitter, all the other places as well, where we talk about all elements of the culture war, the left, the right, and we show you the dark dystopian underbelly of what's really going on, not filtered through, as our guest would call it today, the Mockingbird media, because I want you guys to be able to see what's going on, judge for yourself what's really happening, and then decide whether or not you're comfortable with it. And we have got a very, very, very special guest here today. I know many members of my community have been waiting a while, ever since we watched his interview with Michael Knowles, to have him on the channel. And we'll get to him in just a second. But of course, guys, it is Trump mugshot day. Trump is getting arrested at 7:30 tonight, and we are going to be graced with an iconic Trump mugshot. And because it's Trump mugshot day, I just want to remind everyone that you can head over to the Unwoke art store and pick up your, what I would argue is equally iconic, Trump limited edition indictment victory tour t-shirt. Of course, we have the Trump victory symbol on the front, and then on the back, I have every single indictment that Trump has received so far, just like a concert t-shirt like you would get at a show. And that is only available at unwokeart.com. The link is pinned to the top of the chat. On YouTube, it is in the description everywhere else. And go pick it up, guys. It looks rad. I've been getting like photos from people all over the place who have bought it. I'm really excited. And then, of course, when we get the Trump mugshot, we're going to put that on a mug and sell that too, because we have to. It's just like it's almost like we're obligated to do so. Well, I want to get right into it because we have got a great guest on the channel today. He has been making the rounds on all the shows, and you guys might know him as the QAnon Shaman. I don't think he gave himself that name, but I think a lot of people gave him that name. And I am just so excited to have Jake here today to talk to us about his experiences and his perspective on the world. I just think he's one of the most interesting people out there today, and I know that you guys have lots of questions for him as well. Beth already in with the super chat says, "I'm glowing more than usual. Any particular reason?" Well, no, Beth. Of course, it's not that I've been swooning over our guest today for like several weeks on the internet. It's not that at all. But we're not going to embarrass him anymore before we bring him on. Jake, welcome to the show. We're really glad you're here.
Yes, I'm glad to be here, and thank you for all your hard work and your efforts in exposing what's going on in the public schools and what's going on in corporations, the real racism and grooming that's going on. So, bravo.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, on that note, I actually have a story for you to kind of kick us off. I was at the Capitol on January 6th, just like you, but January 6th was not actually the first time that you and I had crossed paths. And I spoke at a walkaway rally in Phoenix, Arizona in October of 2020, and you were there. And there weren't that many people there, so you kind of stuck out, especially because you were wearing your full shaman garb and you had your staff and everything. And it was actually kind of funny because and I don't know if you know this because I don't know what you were consuming on media, but in the days after January 6th, people were calling you a BLM activist because you had been to BLM rallies. And I was like, no, he's not a BLM activist. He was at the walkaway rally. I know who this guy is. This is just a thing that he does. And so I guess like it's kind of starting there, like, you were going to events in Phoenix before January 6th. Like, why were you going to all of these protests and rallies?
Well, in particular with Antifa and BLM, I was going as a counter protester to march with the police. I was going to ensure that what was going on in places like Portland and Seattle and stuff like that, not in my city. You know, this is my city. So, yeah, there's going to be protests. There's going to be rallies. This is my state. There's going to be protests. There's going to be rallies. You better believe that I most likely will be there.
Excellent. And Murphy's Pool, thank you for the super chat. Great super chat, Murphy's Pool. This one is so special. Excuse me while I whip this out. Well, don't be too saucy around our guest, Murphy's Pool. We have to create a welcoming environment free of harassment here. So, I want to talk about, so we're getting a Trump mugshot today. And so I want to ask you a little bit of an unorthodox question, but I was looking around with some articles about you, and you of course have a mugshot. How did you feel about your mugshot when it came out? Oh, now of course I'm getting an ad. No ads. I just want to see the mugshot. Oh no, it's all backfiring. How did you feel about your mugshot, Jake?
Didn't like it very much.
No.
I had a number of mugshots that they could have chosen that were better, but I think they chose that one because they took the picture when I was unprepared for it.
Of course.
I had just done 11 days of no eating. I took one mugshot that I thought turned out pretty well, and they're like, "Hey, we have to do another one."
So they do multiple tries for mugshots?
I don't know. They just that's the one that you just pulled up. They told me 1, 2, 3, but I think they took the picture on 1 or 2.
Oh, so they wanted to get you surprised.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the real reason I pulled up this article originally is because actually one of the questions I got when people knew you were coming on was about your tattoos. And so this article had a great picture of your tattoos, and I've heard you talk on other shows about how tattooing is like kind of like a spiritual thing for you. And so people were wondering about the meaning of some of your tattoos.
Uh-huh.
Do they have any meanings?
All of them. Yeah, all of them have meaning. In shamanic culture, tattoos are kind of like ribbons on the chest of a military member. So in shamanic culture, you earn your tattoos, and usually they have meaning. So in my case, the tattoos have meaning. They are all symbolic of something, and they're all earned.
Do you want to share? Can you share what you earned them for or what they mean?
Well, yeah, sure. Just which one? All of them? Do you want me to just go down the list?
I guess let's look at some of the ones, and like I think people were particularly wondering about your arms with like the brick-like things.
Okay, so I got those on both of my arms after my dad committed suicide.
Oh wow!
So it's like a commemoration. It's okay. Thank you. It's kind of like in memory of him, while at the same time also like a way of dealing with his passing. And using the physical pain to get over the mental and emotional pain. It took 36 hours total to complete both arms.
Wow.
So Yeah, that's what that's about.
What about this anchor-looking thing on your stomach?
That's the hammer of Thor.
Oh.
I just haven't gotten a chance to complete it yet.
Mhm.
I did it myself, and I was gonna have a buddy of mine kind of finish the rest of it, but then I got locked up, and I definitely wasn't expecting to be, all over the world that day. You know what I mean?
That must have been a little bit of a shock.
Yeah.
How okay, and this is and I swear this is the last January 6th question I'm gonna ask you, but I have to. It was so cold that day. Like, how were you outside all day and not, like, freezing?
Are you familiar with Wim Hof, the Iceman?
I know of him, yeah.
Yeah, so he has techniques. He has breathing techniques that are actually ancient shamanic breathing techniques that he practices to keep his body temperature regulated.
Mhm,
And I just pretty much did what it is that he said, did
mhm,
what it is he said to do, and I was able to keep myself warm, at least warm enough to, just keep going.
mhm. Well, I mean, that's I wanna go down the shamanic path now because I think one of the things that really kind of, like, enticed my community about you in particular is, and I in some respects, I feel like I owe you a little bit of an apology because I didn't take you seriously at all at first. I was like, "This guy's crazy, whatever." And then I have to tell you, when we were watching your interview with Michael Knowles, I've been around, like, these generalized spiritualist communities for a while. I've studied with shamans in Peru. I've done all the things, and to listen to you take Michael Knowles down the rabbit hole into all of these different aspects, I was blown away. Like from ley lines to, just even the think, speak, do thing. Like I have taught my community that on so many different occasions. And I was like, you really do know your stuff. And I know not everyone in my community is spiritualized like this, but I think it's pretty rare to come across people who not only have studied all of the things that you have, and I think you've probably had a lot of downloads as well about these things. And but to be able to explain it as simply as you did is quite something. So, how did you enter into this world? And how did you get started with it?
Like the spiritual stuff.
Yeah, the spiritual stuff.
Well, I've always been spiritual ever since I was a kid.
Hmm.
Uh, my mother raised us Catholic,
Mm.
and that didn't really work. It was not fun. We didn't like going to church. So eventually she just kind of reconciled to the notion of raising us as spiritual human beings. I've always been interested in shamanism ever since I was a kid. I mean, I knew that the guys wearing the feather headdresses or the fur and the horns and, painting their face and drumming and singing and dancing around a fire, I knew that they knew something. I knew they knew something that we had lost in the West. And that this notion that it was all just superstition and woo woo, that wasn't the case, that there was something more to it. And I wanted to know what it was. I also wanted to know what, mushrooms were like and peyote and stuff like that, because they also did those things. And I was like, well, what is the deal with all of this?
Hmm.
And so I studied every religion on the planet, pretty much every religion. And when I finally got around to like really diving deep into shamanism, I realized, oh, this is my thing right here, you know?
Hmm.
And so once I started to initiate myself into shamanism, that's very rare. Usually people are initiated into it by some sort of a mentor and they become like an apprentice. I just did so much studying and so much investigation. And I thought, oh, well, that's a shamanic initiation ritual or ceremony. Well, then I'm going to do that. Oh, that's a shamanic ritual and initiation ceremony. I'm going to do that. And so one thing after another, I kind of initiated myself into it. And meditation, prayer, um, trance states, singing, drumming, long retreats into nature, vision quests of sorts, on the occasion, eating a handful of mushrooms, all of these things really kind of blended together and
Hmm.
gave me this really unique perspective regarding all the research I'd done, all the experiences, very spiritual experiences I had had, and all the downloads, as some people would say, that I had experienced. And they all just kind of came together as a cohesive whole. I like to compare it to the idea of like gold panning, like in a river.
Mm-hmm.
So one day you find a little nugget, so you find a little nugget of truth and you put it in your bag, and then you go back to it. You go back and you find a little nugget and you put it in your bag. Well, I've been gold panning for truth ever since I was a kid. And then I got to a point to where all I had to do was melt this massive bag of gold nuggets into a gold bar and slap it down on the table and be like, there's your gold bar of truth.
Mm-hmm. Based on your kind of experiences and your studies, what do you think the meaning of life is? Simple question.
I think that people are confusing the notion of meaning with purpose.
Okay.
The purpose of life is to experience God's divine oneness, to become consciously one with that interconnected oneness. That is the purpose. And the meaning in similar, like in a way that Rod, it's okay, bud. It's okay. Oh, my dog's barking. Sorry about that. Rodney.
Okay.
Rodney. It's okay, bud. It's okay. It's okay. So the difference between meaning and purpose, like, the sign has a purpose. If a stop sign is there, what does it want you to do? It wants you to stop, right? But the only way you're going to stop is if you know what the meaning is.
Right.
The sign has the meaning. So my thinking is that the body and the mind, the DNA, the spirit, all of that stuff, all being like one thing is something that has a purpose, and it is a meaning that you assign to that purpose. So, everybody's purpose is similar but different. Everybody is here to experience that oneness, but how the process unfolds, that is up to them, and what that process means to them and what it means to others is different for everybody.
Well, on that note, Yasmin is asking, and she spelt it a little bit wrong, but Yasmin wants me to ask you about the Akashic Records.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
What was that like for you?
It was awesome. It was one of those places. It was fractal in nature, and like you could like see it as much as Rodney. It's okay, bud. Rodney. Hey, it's okay, buddy. I think somebody's knocking at the door.
Oh no, mailman.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but I'm gonna ignore it. Anyway, so it was fractal in its design, and just looking at it causes you to absorb knowledge. Just being in its presence causes you to absorb knowledge. And then what you can do is you can like say, well, I want to know about this. And then it's almost like you zoom into the fractal. And because it's a fractal, it's the same shape, it's the same image, but you're zooming into it, and then you're zooming into that particular portion of all of that gnosis, of all that knowledge. And then you absorb that particular portion. And then you're like, well, I want to know about this. So then you zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out, and you just go in and get all this stuff. It was cool. It was really cool. And so it's definitely real. It's definitely real. And it's like a metaphysical library. You can check anything off the shelf. You just got to put it back.
What is one of the most profound kind of like spiritual experiences that you've had in all of the things that you've done? Does anything stick out?
Well, it really all depends on like what you mean. Like when you say profound spiritual experience, you mean like something like feeling the presence of God, or do you mean like experiencing like a miracle? Like what exactly do you mean?
Well, I guess profound I mean, I know there are times for me, like I remember this, like, one time I did ayahuasca and just like left my body and just felt like the pure love of God like raining down on me, because at that time it was preparing me for like the public square, because I was very much a private person. I didn't want people to see me. And it was like, you are loved unconditionally and held unconditionally. And that was, for me, one of the most humbling experiences of my life, where I didn't want to go back into my body. I was like, no, I'm good here. And then they were like, you have to go back. That's the deal. So like moments like that stand out for me, or times when, you know, and I'm sure you can kind of relate to this with the ordeals that you've experienced, when everything seems to be going wrong. And like you have like pain coming, and like people are turning their back on you, and you're like, what did I do to deserve like this sort of thing? But then you kind of like get maybe 6 months or a year out from that, and you can kind of look back at that experience and know what you did to bring yourself into that experience, but also the purpose of that experience in your life. Like it meant something. It was to push you to where you needed to go, even if you didn't want that at the time. And there are moments like that for me that I sometimes I doubt the things that I know are true because they aren't right in front of me all the time. But then there are those moments that are just so profound that I'm like, of course, this is how the universe works. Like, why did I ever doubt it in the first place? That's ridiculous. And so I don't know if you've had moments like that on your journey.
Oh yeah, probably a little too many to count.
Mm-hmm.
When I got this tattoo right here,
Mm-hmm.
I got it on mushrooms. 6.5 hours of sitting in a chair with my eyes closed, tripping balls. And
Wow.
like on another level, on another plane, being confronted by the mushroom entity and basically being interrogated at first. It came disguised as a minotaur, and that was intense. But then after it realized that I was just there to learn, and I'm just here to learn. I kept saying, I'm just here to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Then it like dissolved, it like went away, and then like massive amounts of knowledge began to pour in, stuff that went beyond the use of words, helped me to understand the nature to reality, my place in the world, what I was doing wrong, what I could do right, what I needed to do to get where I wanted to go. That was pretty profound. That was on November 24th, 2012. Then there was the experience I had of a vision of the future of Barack Obama being president in 2004. Saw him being president in 2008 and creating a caliphate in the Middle East. There's so many, I also had a vision of the future on December 21st, 2012, as the sun was rising. I've had some pretty intense, miraculous experiences as well. I'm just not going to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
All shamans have their secrets.
Yes.
All shamans have the things that they keep to themselves. But suffice to say, it's pretty freaking awesome. And that's the kind of stuff that I live for. Is like, that is what to me is like, oh, like, don't care about millions of dollars, don't care about fame, don't care about clout, don't give a fuck. What I care about is like experiencing the metaphysical, experiencing something spiritual, experiencing something boundary dissolving, mind blowing, that I can be like, dude, I experienced that, and I can take that experience with me when I go. I can't take millions of dollars. I can't take a bunch of fame and fortune. I can't do any of that, but I can take these experiences and the richness of life with me when I go. So I suppose, like, coming back to this idea of the meaning of life, I suppose that is kind of the meaning. For me, is the meaning is to make sure that I fulfill my purpose and have the most amount of awesome experiences while I'm here, so I can take those with me and bring them back to heaven and be like, yo, that place down there is so awesome. Now, when it comes to like what you were saying about like intense ordeals, what happened after January 6th? I mean, looking back at that, and being like, man, holy crap. I went through that. Like, when I was in solitary, it felt like it was never going to end. And even when I was in prison itself, it felt like, it feels like you're never going to get out of there. Every day is pretty much the same. I didn't enjoy but a handful of people that were there, and even then it was all kind of tainted because I was in prison, so I couldn't really enjoy anything. So, but like looking back on it, I used it as an opportunity to put on some muscle. I used it as an opportunity to educate myself and become sharper up here. I used it as an opportunity to help and work with inmates. And I taught a metaphysics course in prison.
Wow.
Yeah. I was also in the RDAP program, residential drug abuse program, because I confessed to the investigator that did my pre-sentence investigation that I'd eaten mushrooms and smoked weed. And they're like, BOP says you have to do residential drug abuse program. So I was like, all right, well, whatever. I'll do that. I'll gain some first step back credits and I'll help some dudes out, that are real addicts. So I think that time and attention are your currency. And so I chose to devote my time and attention to self-improvement. I chose to invest it in self-improvement and helping others to invest in self-improvement. I chose not to waste it. And I chose to invest it so I could spend it with my family, with my dog, with my friends, and now that I look back on it, Lord knows I really don't want to ever go through anything like that again. But now that I look back on it, I'm like, wow, that really made me a stronger, more spiritual, better man. And it's in one way or another, it's kind of helped me to understand people that I never would have understood before, a whole set, view of life that I never would have gotten a glimpse of. And it's also helped me to appreciate the little things, going to the store, going on a hike, seeing my dog, not being mad at him that he's barking during an interview. He doesn't know better. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that, or like being able to see my family, just give my mom or my brothers a hug, these things, being able to go outside whenever I want, being able to cook my own food, all of these things that I took for granted. Now I'm just like, well, cheers to that. Let's do it.
Cheers, my friend. Yeah, I was actually thinking about like the time you spent in solitary earlier today, and I was thinking about this shaman that I worked with in Peru, who she would go out into the Amazon for days or weeks at a time with just nothing. With just like, and she would trust that the jungle was going to provide her with shelter and food, and she was going to be protected and all that. And what she said is that the most profound like work that you'll ever do in terms of understanding yourself and your purpose and what you're here for is when you're completely isolated, away from everything. No internet, no technology, no one else around you, and it's just you, and you only have yourself. And so I was thinking about that in relation to you in solitary, and I wonder if does that have resonance with kind of what you experienced in that environment?
Absolutely. Solitary sucks, but like it really made me stronger. It was a lot of external pressure because the government was saying stuff about me in the courtroom that wasn't true. The media was saying stuff about me that wasn't true. Even my own defense attorney was saying things about me that wasn't true. I was stuck in a room 22 hours a day. I had this like 25-year anvil above my head of a 25-year maximum sentence if I chose to go to trial. And to top it all off, there was nothing I could do about any of it. Yeah. So it's a lot of pressure, and I didn't have really anybody to converse with to make me feel better. So I had all this pressure, and it didn't break me. It turned me into a diamond. Mm-hmm. And I think that what that shaman friend of yours in the Amazon was saying is 100% true, because it also left me with a lot of time to think, a lot of time to analyze myself. And I, of course, when you're all by yourself, you tend, and especially in that kind of a situation, at least I tended to think about all the times that I had screwed up in life.
Yeah.
And like, man, I wish I would have done that differently. I wish I would have done that differently. I can't believe I said this to her. I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I did this. I can't believe I wasn't there for that, all that stuff. So that kind of, it helped. Even though it sucked, it helped me to be more spiritual. It helped me to look at life a little differently. The things that I took for granted, now I just wanted to be able to cook my own meal. Now I just wanted to be able to go for a hike. Mm-hmm. Whoa.
Excellent. Yasmin wants to know, can you talk to us about, can you ask how he deeply goes into the law of attraction? Can you talk to us about the law of attraction and manifesting a little bit?
Sure. So, um, I believe it's Dr. Joe Dispenza. I think
I
that's his name.
love Dr. Joe. I have done every level of Dr. Joe's workshops.
Yeah, he has a pretty good take on it.
Yeah.
The idea of your thoughts are like an electrical impulse that you
Mhm.
send out, and then you use your heart to attract your magnetic field to attract that to you. I like to look at it from a little more. I mean, I think that's brilliant, but I've always kind of just looked at it from a little more of a shamanic perspective of it's about intention and attention, and it's about projection and perception. So you intend what you want to create or the future that you want to manifest, right? And then you put that out there, you project it onto the quantum cosmic hologram. So you have an intention that you project, right, onto the quantum cosmic hologram. Then you use your attention to perceive that reality coming into fruition.
Mhm.
And that's pretty much like the best way I can explain it. I once heard that the Essenes and in Christ's ancient teachings was that like your thought, when your thoughts and your emotions combine as like one stream, one steady stream of current, one kind of like current of energy, then you get this feeling in your heart. And when you create that feeling in your heart, that ends up affecting the quantum realm. And, like the whole observer effect, this double slit experiment, everything being a wave and a particle and a particle and a wave and all that stuff. The universe is constantly changing. That's why the Buddha said nothing is permanent. So I guess the real trick is to kind of get in line with that change. And then you can kind of begin to change things a little bit to your liking. But I think that the ultimate goal is to enjoy life as it is.
Mm.
I mean, and yeah, manifestation is a good thing. I'm not saying it's not. But if it's one thing I learned from prison and solitary, it's that life is good as it is. And that because in the West, we have this like idea of, success,
Yeah.
then we forget, like, dude, being alive is a success. Being out of pain, not being in pain, that's a success. That's a blessing. Being able to eat food, being able to walk, being able to see, these things are successes. These things are victories. People just take them for granted. But think about how many people out there that are blind would wish they could see. How many that are crippled wish they could walk. How many that are sick that wish they were healthy. How many people that are poor that wish they had more money, the money of an American, a poor American citizen. How many people are homeless that wish they had a roof over their head? Think like Christ said, the birds of the air, they do not reap nor sow, and yet our heavenly Father feeds them. Will he not all the more feed you? Are you not more important than they? So when you come from a place of already being thankful for what you have, then it's a lot easier to manifest what it is that you want.
Yes, because that's when you open your heart up and you're allowed to, you
Right.
can bring it back in. I
Yeah.
also think how I try to describe it to people is like it's the thing that people get wrong about manifesting is they think it's about just like thinking about how much they want something. They want money, they want fame, they want a nice car, like whatever it is. But if you put yourself in a state of wanting, you're
That's
always going to
lack.
be wanting. Exactly. It's a state of lack. You're not the person that has that money or fame or car or whatever it is. You have to see yourself as the person that already has those things and that feels the emotions of being satisfied with what you already have. And that's how you're going to draw those things to you. Am I wrong?
Seek and you shall find, knock and the door shall be opened, ask it shall be given to you. So you have to recognize that you have to be thankful for what you know is already there. And that's how I've created some incredible things, that I'm not going to get into just yet, dear. But the idea of like part of shamanism is creating storms, bringing the rain and stuff like that. So Greg Braden, I would encourage Yasmin to check into the book, The Lost Mode of Prayer by Greg Braden. And in that book, he talks about how there was this, I think it was in New Mexico, this Native American dude that brought Greg Braden out to a medicine wheel and for a rain ceremony. You know, the shaman was going out there to call for rain because they had a drought in New Mexico. And he brought him out there, and Greg said that he went out to the medicine wheel and Greg was just watching him, and, you know, he closed his eyes and, you know, stood there for a couple minutes, and then he's like, all right, let's go. And Greg was like, aren't you going to sing? Aren't you going to dance? Like, what are you doing? You know, like, what's the deal? He's like, no. Well, all I did was I prayed rain. Not I prayed for rain. I prayed rain. And so what he did is, while he was in that circle, he created the feeling of what it would be like to have corn stalks, you know, high up in the fields, to what it would be like to squish his toes in the mud, the smell of the rain at that time of year and what that was normally like. And he knew already that he had created that. He created that in his little field, in his consciousness, in his quantum cosmic projection into the hologram. And then he used that as a chance to perceive that reality. He used his intention, projection, his attention, and in his perception to bring that reality into existence. And Greg said that night they got more rain than they knew what to do with.
Wow, that's intense. Guys, we're here with Jacob-Chansley or Jacob-Angeli. I never know exactly what name to call you because you go by different ones.
I have two last names. No, I have two last names. It's Angeli-Chansley. And so, like, it's easier, I think, to say Jake-Angeli than Jake-Angeli-Chansley. It's just a mouthful.
Fair enough. Guys, if you want to check out Jake's book, it is on Amazon. I have actually been reading it, and it's a good read. It's a relatively quick read. It's a good read. I want everyone to check it out. It's called One Mind at a Time, A Deep State of Illusion. And then he also has a website, Forbidden Truth Academy. The links for that are in the description below. Please mount that like button if you're enjoying the conversation so far. We've got him for about another 24 minutes or so, and we're going to get as many questions in as we can. And LK wants to know, what can we do to help wake people up? So in my community, there are a lot of just people that are disaffected with both political sides. And I think we're very interested in how do we get people to see what's actually going on in the world as we kind of see it? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah. You know, it's kind of like waking up a teenager to go to school in the morning. Good luck.
Oh God, isn't that the truth? That's the best analogy I've ever heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna fight and kick and scream, and they're gonna say, no, I feel sick, no, I can't do it. You gotta come in and wake them up 10 times. So I would say don't get too heavily invested in the idea of waking people up immediately. More so, it's important to plant seeds. And the best way to plant seeds is to ask questions. So instead of maybe trying to spit facts at people, maybe figure out a way to where you can turn what it is that you're trying to say as a statement into the form of a question. I would also say that being a good example is the best way, I think, to wake people up. Trying to go around being a walking red pill won't get you liked very much.
No, it definitely will not.
It does. And the thing is that I don't give one shit about being liked. I mean, I don't care. Other people's opinions of me is none of my business, and you can only be offended if you care what the people around you think. Somebody cannot offend me without my permission. You know what I mean? So I just learned that, and this is through trial and error, that the best way to red pill people is by being a good example, is by being having such peace and calm and a good attitude that people are like, dude, what's your thing? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? How do you stay so calm? How did you stay so calm when that guy was yelling at you like that? you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually that's when their minds are open to like, well, this is what it is. And this is the other thing. And this is something I had to learn the hard way. Don't try and get it all done at once.
Yeah.
You know, just give them just enough and try milk before meat. You don't feed an infant with no teeth meat. You give them milk. Okay. And a lot of these people that are just waking up, they don't have any teeth. So you're sitting there trying to shove a whole steak down their mouth. That's not going to work. You know, you're going to make them cry. You're going to make, oh, I don't want to do this. Get away from me. I don't like you, you know? So you just got to give them milk. And my thing is, and I think that this is the most interesting part about waking people up, is that you have to understand psychological warfare. You have to understand how their brains have been neurolinguistically programmed and based in a way to react on certain trigger words, on certain trigger images. And so if you say certain things, I'm sure you know this, if you say certain things to a Republican or a conservative, oh, they are triggered.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But then you say certain things to a Democrat, they are triggered. And it's because they have these subconscious seeds that have been planted in their mind, these patterns, these subconscious patterns that once these words work their way into the conversation, it's like the sirens go off, you know? So that's why I like to start with Tesla Tower technology. Nikola Tesla, infinite free, clean wireless electricity, because Republicans and Democrats alike, you know, Republican and Democrat voters alike can agree, if there is an infinite free, clean source of wireless electricity, we should be using it.
Right.
You know, and of course they're going to be like, well, what about oil? What about nuclear? And so for me, when it comes to the conservatives, you're best off being like, you know, screw solar panels, screw lithium, screw wind turbines, say all that first. And then you can say, and yeah, you know, if it's polluting the environment, screw nuclear energy and screw oil. If we have an infinite free, clean, wireless form of electricity, that's what we should be using, you know, and if it's the other way with the Democrats, you could say, you know, screw oil, screw nuclear, and then you can say screw the solar panels, the lithium batteries, and the wind turbines. If there's an infinite free, clean source of wireless energy, then we should be using it. Another example would be Dr. Rife. That's R-I-F-E, Royal Raymond Rife. Dr. Rife's machine, and how he was working with Nikola Tesla, and he used frequencies and vibration to kill cancer and other diseases. So similar to how you can shatter a wine glass with sound and frequency, you can shatter a cancer cell or a virus with sound and frequency without doing any damage to healthy human tissue. So that also is another route that I go, because Republican and Democrat voters can both agree, if there's a cure for cancer, and there are many, then they should be released to the public, in spite of the fact that they'll have negative side effects for the pharmaceutical companies and their profits. The 3 patents that Donald Trump released in 2020 that were filed by a guy named Salvador Payas, room temperature superconductor, a 0-point energy engine, and a TR-3B triangular shaped inertia propulsion or anti-gravity craft. These are the things I like talking about. And the reason why they're good things to talk about, and the reason why they're the best seeds to plant, in my opinion, is because nobody has an opinion on them.
Right.
There's no trigger there. They're like, huh? Really?
That's
it's like,
brilliant.
Yeah.
You have to go to the kind of like neutral territory.
Yes. And territory that everybody can agree on, that nobody really knows anything about. And not just that, but like when it comes to Tesla Tower technology and Dr. Rife and his machine, as people look into both of these stories, they're going to find 3 things. Number 1, they're going to find corruption at its inception here in the United States. People like JP Morgan, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, these big bankrolling families, and how they stood in the way of Tesla, how they stood in the way of medical advancement with Dr. Rife, how they stood in the way of real progress in the early 1900s. Okay, that's one thing they're going to find. Number 2, what they're going to find is all of the applications for these technologies, how they could revolutionize and evolutionize our entire socioeconomic and geopolitical system, how they could be used to make all of our problems completely obsolete. And the last thing, and this is what's, I think, kind of most important, in order to understand how these technologies work, you have to understand energy, frequency, and vibration. And Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So as people investigate these two things, Tesla Tower Tech and Dr. Rife and his machine, what they're going to find is corruption at its inception in the United States, early on, not early 1900s. Number two, all of the applications that these patents have for humanity and how they could free us from a decentralized grid system that is owned by the globalists. And then number three, what they're going to find is the spiritual secrets to reality, the spiritual secrets of the universe. And so what you end up having is you end up having like a perfect storm of sorts to dispel all of the crap that has been used to imprison our minds spiritually, economically, politically, technologically, in just these two little patents.
Brilliant. I love it. Jennifer says, thank you, Jake, for being such an authentic light and for being a beautiful example of walking the path of the human being. Thank you, Jennifer, for that. Let's see, we got a couple more questions here. Mama Tembo says, enjoying this conversation so much. Does Jacob have any suggestions for navigating the chaotic collective while maintaining peace and finding joy in the beauty of this human experience? His wisdom is greatly appreciated.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I got some things to say about that. Let it go. You know, this is quite possibly the most exciting time we could have picked to be alive. There's people for millennia that have pointed to this time right now that it's like, dude, I wish I want to be alive for that. I want to see what was going to go on there. You know, this is the apocalypse. I mean, it's the lifting of the veil. It's the big reveal. It's, you know, showing people what has been hidden. It's lifting the veil during a time of mass deception. So it's not that the world is getting worse. The world has been this bad. What's happening is that it's becoming more obvious. You know, the truth of national and global corruption is so obvious. It's just like slapping people in the face. Wake up, you know, and it's like our parent, you know, when we're a teenager coming in and pouring cold water on us as we're sleeping in our beds and we're late for school. That's kind of what's going on here with the spiritual stuff and the political stuff and all that, is that the world is changing, but it is changing for the better. Because now we're waking up. Yeah, there's, you know, weirdos like Klaus Schwab, the Nazi that he is, and, you know, George Soros, the Nazi that he is, people like Bill Gates, the, you know, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. There are these people out there, but they're literally less than 1% of the population. So what are we bitching about? We have the control. We have the power. You know what I'm saying? We are the power that they seek to control, you know, and it's control over our minds and our decisions, our behavior. That is their power, and they're losing it. You know, that's why they're
kicking and screaming. That's why it's the last flailing of the dying animal.
Yeah, exactly. And it is a dinosaur. You know, these people are old. They ain't gonna, you know, truly those that are oppressing us must grow old and eventually die one day. I mean, that's why they're pushing for transhumanism so hard, because they know they're going back to hell.
Oh, yeah, for real.
You know, but when it comes to like navigating the chaotic collective, I would say anytime, and this is probably because of the way that I grew up, but whenever somebody tries to piss me off, what it does is it makes me more calm. And I would just say to people like, you know, Gandhi said that power is not about external force, but about having an indomitable will. So I must then turn the question back onto the audience and say, how easy is your will to dominate?
I love it. I love it. Gayla says, and you talked about this in your interview with Michael Knowles, I do a lot of work on a ley line. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, you can definitely feel it when you're there. Some people see colors, some people see patterns, some people find it easier to visualize, some people feel overwhelmed. Like with like emotion and like euphoric and stuff like that. The more baggage you got, the harder it is to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you let go and enjoy and just become a vessel for the divine, then the easier it is to kind of venture beyond the physical and into the metaphysical. Mm-hmm. I would say that it's good that they're doing work on the ley lines. Please keep that up. And if you can, do it at noon on the West Coast of America and 3 p.m. on the East Coast of America on Saturdays so that we can all line up together. Because I always go down to the Arizona State Capitol on Saturdays at noon. And the whole point is to get humanity on the ley lines at the same time, on the same day, every week. Mm-hmm. And then really get the collective consciousness going, charge the ley lines with positive vibrations, peaceful, loving, harmonious vibrations, and then really start to raise the frequency and raise the consciousness of the planet, the Shaman resonance.
Awesome. I want to try to get everyone's question in. Jake has about 10 more minutes with us. Jennifer says, do you have any thoughts about healing the pain body trauma?
It's almost like pain is like a knot in the metaphysical field, in the electromagnetic field, and you can untangle the knot, but it's just going to take time. And knots can be not just physical, they can also be emotional. They can be mental. And a lot of the time, mental and emotional knots eventually lead to physical ones, physical dis-ease, or things like anxiety, depression, addiction. So I would just say that untangle your knots.
Fair enough. Rottweiler wants to know, although Knowles from the Daily Wire seemed charitable while having you on, was there tension given the differences in belief off camera?
No, not at all. He was great. In some ways, he was a little more open-minded off camera.
He was very open-minded to you. I was genuinely shocked at how much he just let you talk and like bring him down that rabbit hole. I thought it was great.
Yeah, Michael Knowles is a great dude. I really enjoyed our conversation. I have nothing but positive things to say about him.
Cool. We got a couple more super chats. LaQuisha says, if we can get a working prototype of a Tesla tower or 0-point energy device, I would gladly leave whatever engineering job I have to work on that. It would be a game changer for humanity. I completely agree with that one. And then
absolutely.
Our last question for the moment is Vince says, Jake, do you think we're experiencing a battle of beliefs and reality tunnels being played out in our streets these days?
Yeah, it's a battle of psyops and collective subjective universes. Most people aren't really living in the collective objective universe. They're living either in a personal subjective universe or a collective subjective universe. And this is based on misinformation and propaganda. So it's like they choose which bullshit narrative they're going to believe, and then they fight with each other about which bullshit narrative is right, as opposed to kind of coming to this place about, okay, well, what's real? What besides what my opinion is, what is reality? And that's why I practice shamanism, because it's like the only religion that isn't really dogmatic. It's like, well, no, let's get to the crux of the issue. Let's get to the foundation. What is this foundation? What is reality? How does it work for itself? What is it for itself? Not as I perceive it, but as it is for itself. And that's part of the reason why, like ayahuasca or mushrooms or whatever, peyote, even cannabis, if used properly, mind you, if used properly or shamanically, they help people get to that bedrock. They help them get to that foundation. Mm-hmm. They help to reveal the underlying underbelly of reality itself and in the cosmic collective consciousness. And it's awesome. But if you do it for the wrong reasons, it's terrifying.
That's for real.
just make sure you're doing it for the right reasons with the right person in the right place at the right time for you. It isn't a party drug. You're not just supposed to do this stuff willy-nilly and go to the mall or go to the movies, or go to the club. Don't do that. Don't do that. I would say that's why I talk about Tesla Tower technology. That's why I talk about Dr. Reif. That's why I talk about the 3 patents: 0-point energy, room temperature superconductor, and the TR3B, because these are things where both of these dualistic, polarized views of reality can converge, and we can actually kind of get people on an objective view of reality. Like, no, this is possible.
Mm-hmm. I agree. All right, guys, we got a couple more super chats. And Jenny's getting inky with it. Says, have you ever noticed that certain places have a certain quality of light, like a glow? What does that mean?
Well, it really all depends. Like, if she means like in like ecosystems, in my opinion, that's likely that there's like a high frequency vortex in the area.
I dig that. And Beth, thank you for the super chat. And thank you guys, everyone, for the super chat. You guys are being so generous today, and it's really great, and I'm grateful for it. Thank you for this perspective, Jake. It's challenging, but I believe we find what we need at the perfect time. There is a saying, there's nothing new under the sun. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, kind of. The way I look at it is that it's these cycles of energy. And the cycles of energy are repetitious in one way or another, but they are always leading to something new. They're leading to something novel. And yeah, it's the same souls, but in different bodies and experiencing the world in different ways. And that's cool. That's cool. We wouldn't keep doing it if it wasn't fun. But I think that evolution is novel. Evolution is new. This notion of there's nothing new under the sun, I guess you could say it harkens back to how the modern transition or the modern evolution into a new frequency or a new frame of mind regarding consciousness is actually harkening back to a more of like what Terence McKenna called an archaic revival, where we are looking back into our past for a stabilizing metaphor, because we've become so unstable with our view of reality that we're like, okay, we have to look back in the past and see what worked, what stabilized us, what kept us going. And but at the same time, we're doing that now with all of this other stuff like quantum physics, particle physics, with all this knowledge that has been acquired, all this research that has been done regarding things like ESP, regarding things like remote viewing, astral projection, bilocation, telepathy, all these things that have been clinically proven, statistically proven to exist. So there's all this data now that can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt what the shamans knew thousands of years ago based on their own experience.
Fascinating. And our last question is from Sin, and Sin says, can we see your dog? He sounds lovely.
Hey, Rod, come here, bud. Come here, buddy. People want to see you, bud. They want to see your handsome face, bud. Come here, bud. Good boy. Come on, buddy. Come on. Come here. Yeah, you got to come around, bud.
It's going to be the real highlight of the interview right here.
Come on, buddy. Come on, buddy. There he is. Come here, bud. Come here. Okay. I'm going to lift you up. One of his feet is hurting, so.
Oh, there he is. Oh, he looks just like his bark.
Yeah, he's a good boy, this guy right here.
Oh, we love him.
I love him. He's my buddy. Okay, I'm going to let you down.
All right. Well, Jake, I know we have to let you go, but again, thank you so much for coming on. I absolutely love your perspective. We think you're great. I would love to have you on anytime. And if you're ever doing any sort of like Vision Quest stuff, I will fly out to Arizona, man. You just tell me the dates, take my money. I will be there because I just think you're awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. God bless you and God bless your audience. I appreciate you.
Thank you, guys. All right, that's all we have for tonight, guys. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. for happy hour. Take care. Have a great sorry. Oh gosh, Draco, we missed your super chat before Jake left, but hopefully he'll see it. Jake, you articulate things so well that I can actually understand it. Thanks so much. My heart is full right now. I'll make sure he sees it. Thank you guys again for the super chats. And another one came in. You guys are so why aren't you guys this generous when it's just me? LaQuisha says, maybe this is a question you could DM him. I don't have the answer to this, and I apologize we didn't get to it before he had to go, but how do you feel about Ken Wilber's integral theory? I think sex, ecology, and spirituality is the best work on an evolution of consciousness I have read. Maybe we can ask him that another time, or I would definitely recommend, guys, make sure you check out his Twitter spaces that he does, and because you can go on and ask him questions, and his website, his book, all that stuff are in the description below. But guys, again, I will be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. for happy hour. Take care, guys. Have a great rest of your day.